All right, for this lesson, we are going to start looking at graphing sine and cosine as functions. So we're going to leave our triangles and really focus in on them as what happens if we graph them all the way out. So what we are going to start with is the function y equals sine of x. And I've already set up a table of values for us to look at. So we're going to find these and we're going to graph them. It's going to be great. So the first thing we want to plug in is 0. We want to find what's the sine of 0. So here's our 0-degree angle. Now, it's really hard to draw a triangle of that, so what I want you to think of is this is the point 1, 0, and sine is always going to be our y-coordinate. So the sine of 0 is 0. If you're not sure about that, you can always plug it into your calculator. You'll find out the same thing. All right, the next we want to plug in 30 degrees, so we're going to draw ourselves a 30-degree angle. Drop this down to make a triangle. If this angle is 30 degrees, the opposite side is 1, hypotenuse is 2, and then this is root 3. And those are those special right triangles that we talked about before. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so the sine of 30 is going to be 1/2. Now, normally we do exact values for these. I am also going to write the decimal because we're going to be graphing this in a minute. So 0.5. Okay, I'm going to erase this triangle because we have lots of triangles to draw here. Now we're going to do a 45-degree angle. Okay, so here's that. Drop that down. So if this is a 45-degree angle, the sides are 1, 1, and root 2. And that makes the sine 1 over root 2, which if we rationalize is root 2 over 2. And like I said before, we're going to want the decimal, so that's right around 0.7. All right, and now we'll draw a 60-degree angle. So that's maybe up here. Finish out the triangle. If this is 60 degrees here, that makes this 30. So this side is 1, hypotenuse is 2, and root 3. And the sine of 60 degrees is root 3 over 2, which as a decimal is like 0.866. So we'll just say 0.9. And then finally, 90 degrees. 90 degrees is straight up. Really hard to draw a triangle there. So again, I want you to think about the coordinates here. That is 0, 1. And the sine is going to be the y-coordinate, so 1. All right, and now we're going to keep going on this. I'm going to kind of fill these in rather quickly. You're still doing the same thing for these. You're still drawing the triangle, so 120 degrees is going to be over here. Okay, we drop this down. 120 degrees is going to have a reference angle of 60. So if this is a reference angle of 60, we have 1, 2, root 3. And so then our sine is going to be root 3 over 2, which is 0.866 again. Then when we do a 135-degree angle, that's over here. Its reference angle is going to be 45 degrees. And we get 1, 1, root 2. So again, this is root 2 over 2, which is 0.7. All right. Next one is 150. 150-degree angle is here. I'm going to draw that triangle. Its reference angle is 30 degrees. So we have 1, 2, root 3, and the sine of that's going to be 1/2. And then finally, we have 180 degrees. Again, it's really hard to draw a triangle here, so instead we're going to think about the coordinates here. This is -1, 0, and sine is the y-coordinate, so 0. All right, now when we go into the next part, this is more of the same table. I just didn't have room for it all. We're going to follow the same thing. Again, I'm going to go through these rather quickly. 210 is going to be over here. Draw the rest of that triangle. The reference angle is 30. So we have 1, 2, and root 3. But notice now we're in the third quadrant, so we're left and down. So these are both negative values. So our sine is going to be -1/2. All right. Next, we're going to do 225, which is right here. Draw the triangle. We're going to figure out the reference angle, which is 45 degrees. And we get 1 root 2. And remember, again, we're in the third quadrant, so these are both negative because we're left and down. So our sine turns out to be -1 over root 2, which is negative root 2 over 2, which is -0.7. Okay. 240 is going to be the same thing. It's going to have a reference angle of 60, so you get negative root 3 over 2. And then for 270 is straight down. Very hard to draw that triangle, so instead we'll think about the coordinates here. This is 0, -1, so the sine is going to be -1. All right, I'm going to do one more of these and then I'll fill in the rest myself. When we do this in class, like when we're all there together, each group only does one of these, so you're not going to have to do all this work by yourself ever. 300 degrees, that's right here. We're going to draw its angle. Its reference angle is 60. So that makes this 1, 2, and root 3, but we're in the fourth quadrant, so we're right 1 and down. So that should be a negative root 3. So that makes our sine negative root 3 over 2. 315 is going to be negative root 2 over 2, and you can draw that triangle if you need to see it for yourself. And this is going to be negative 1/2. And finally, 360 is going to be 0. Okay, so finding all those, we did all of those in the last lesson. Well, not all of them, but that process. What I really want to do is just graph these. Okay, so now look at this table of values. I want to graph the point 0, 0. Okay, and then I have 30 degrees and 0.5. Here's 1. We'll call this -1. Okay, so 30 degrees, 0.5. 45 degrees, 0.7. 60 degrees, 0.9. And 90 degrees, 1. And then 120, 0.9. 135, 0.7. 150, 0.5. And 180, 0. And then we're going to keep going on the next side. 210 is -1/2. 225 is -0.7. 240 is -0.9, and then -1. And then 300, -0.9. 315, -0.7. 330, -1/2, and 360 is 0. So you can see from this, the graph that we get looks like that. Now, what I want you to think about is if we kept going, okay? If we kept going to say like 390 degrees, well, the reference angle of 390 degrees is going to be 30. So that's just going to start repeating. Okay, this is, remember, sine is a periodic function. So if you start launching yourself around this unit circle again, you're going to get the same sine values repeating. So this is called a sine curve or sine wave, and it's just going to repeat over and over again. In the next video, we'll look at the cosine curve and kind of see what they have in common.